when telling the story, we like to really get into the origin a little bit, so everything could be chronological and things of that nature, and really form this picture as far as who Dewey the Don really is. You see what I'm saying? So you were born in Kansas City, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Where
give
we had
me
to hustle to be heard.
yes, sir. So give it to me, man. How was it growing up in Kansas City?
Well, overall, Kansas City is I always say we city country, man. It's a very small, it's a small place. You know, you throw a rock, you gonna hit somebody, you know. We don't really got a lot of resources there, you know what I'm saying, as far as like a New York or like a LA or even like an Atlanta. So, you know, down there, man, you gotta be a hustler, you know what I'm saying? In
Mm-hmm.
the sense of because we aren't afforded a lot of the things, we just got to figure it out on our own. But you know, that builds a different type of grit and initiative within yourself. Now, me specifically, I always tell people to understand the person that sits before you. You got to understand the two halves to make the whole. So, growing up, you know, I was exposed to two different extreme dynamics within my household. My father was a drug kingpin. My dad, Charlie Hustle, you know what I'm saying? And he did 10, 13 in the feds, you know what I'm saying, behind it. But you know, like growing up, I was exposed to a lot. It really made me advance fast, you know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing my dad with 18 wheelers full of weed, full of pounds, you know what I'm saying? Seeing him
Right.
cook, work in the kitchen, etc. But I always tell people, you know, that God doesn't place people in your life to always be a positive example. Sometimes he places people there to show you what not to do. But you know, as a young man, you gonna look up to the male role models that you got in your life.
That's
So,
right.
you know, I picked up hustling from my dad, but I always tell people too, you know, on the flip side, you know, from my dad's side of the family, that's where I get my hustle, my drive, my charisma. That's where I learn how to, you know, work and talk with people. Now, my mom, she worked 3 jobs
Mm-hmm.
just to take care of me and my little brother. You know what I'm saying? Growing up, I would see my mom in between jobs, bro. She might have like 30 to 45 minutes. She wouldn't even change her clothes, bro. She plopped down on the couch, bam, get right back up and get to it. You know, my mom used to take my hands and she would rub them on the top of her hands and let me feel the calluses on her
Mm.
hands, bro. And she would be
Mm.
like, "Hey, these the hands of a working woman. Be
Right.
like me, don't be like your father." So, you know,
Right.
from my mom, I got my principles, my morals, my ethics, and she taught me how to be hardworking. Like whatever you doing and your name is attached to it, whether you mopping a floor or you talking in front of people, you know what I mean? Have
Mm-hmm.
pride in your name because you're carrying me with you everywhere you go because you
That's
my
right.
son. So yeah, bro, that's kind of like the gist of me and what I was going through as far as like growing up in Kansas City in
And
my
that
household.
and that's wild, man. You know, I'm being honest with you. Number one, when you talk about your moms or whatnot, I really get that, because what your mom's telling you is like, I tell my kids that all the time. Like, understand what it is to be out here and grind and carrying yourself a certain type of way, because you're carrying my name out here. You're a reflection of
On
me. You
everything.
see what I'm
On
saying?
everything.
And it's like the calluses, like I have calluses on my hand, and like I tell my daughter the same thing. I'm like, this comes from hard work. You know, she looking at me
Everything.
like, Dad, why your hands so hard? Because I work hard. You see what I'm saying?
On
But
everything.
but another thing is, and I want to tap into this a little bit. Everybody ain't the son of a kingpin, though, bro. You see what I'm saying? So
That's a
in
fact.
in that aspect, let me ask you a question. Did it go to your head a little bit when you were younger, out on the block, or were you the type of trying to just make your own name and not be in the shadow of your dad?
Yeah, like to me, and it's so crazy because it's like I had seen it growing up all my life, and it wasn't like my dad had 8 brothers. My dad is the oldest. My dad started hustling when he was 8 years old. Like his mama had him hustling. You know, he was at school with a 22 and a pack. You feel me? So
Mm,
I've been seeing everybody around me getting money my whole life. So for me, it wasn't even nothing that went to my head
hmm.
because that was that side of the family.
Right.
Because on my mom's side of the family, we was because also too what you got to understand is my dad was in and out of jail throughout my life.
Mm,
My dad also he was you know, a baller in the street. So he out chasing women, he doing with the woo. And it was a large part of my life too, where my mama held me back from my dad. But like I would see my dad hustle and I would see my mom struggle.
Gotcha.
So that always kept me grounded because I knew we was all a step away from either having it or not having it. But then I also took in consideration when you get it, what you supposed to do with it. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
my motivation for hustling was always changing my circumstance, my situation, and the people around me.